All right. It is Friday.
Woo!
The mayhem has commenced. We're doing our best, treading water, keeping our head above the surface here, getting ready for Wednesday's release. If you can, assist us at all in getting the word out. On Wednesday, we have our 5th Frontier War campaign going live. This is our next official Traveller product line, and for the first time, tied into Mongoose Traveller, we'll have some things to show off today, and in fact, we will be working on one of the items that's going to be in that campaign.
One thing,
What?
the stream started just now.
Okay.
I'm not sure you got the start.
Did I get cut off at the start?
Yeah, so when I avbröt dig, it started.
Alright. Albin is saying I have to restart my intro because it didn't come through. Whether or not that's true, I guess we're doing that now. So, yeah. Welcome to the stream. Ben here from Second Dynasty. We are struggling today to keep our heads above the water. Just getting ready for the campaign. There's a lot left to do. Lieselot and Albin are both painting like mad people. Like a mad woman and a mad man, I guess. John is rendering like mad. We're going to show off some of the stuff he's rendering. He's giving me the thumbs up. We have a show and tell of some of the items going to be in the campaign. Of course, we want to show off what we've done with the Typhon. Although I'll probably be taking about a week break from that. I'm thinking just because I'm going to be working all weekend. We don't have a pitch video. There's stuff that we still have left to do before we can actually complete some of those tasks. So that's going to take priority. So welcome to the chat. Let's see who we got. We got Clive, Solo Spirit, Tamsin Shergill, Doug Jeffries, Sam. Welcome. And hopefully there'll be a couple of people streaming in to the stream. And that stream will flow into a river of people that will all back this campaign.
Yay!
Probably not, but it would be wonderful if we can get some of those Traveller fans to notice, because we do have plans on releasing both physical and STL files in this. We can talk about that a little bit more today. You can see in front of me we have the reservation page. You'll see a little bit here that you guys won't see because obviously this is the back end version, if you will, but you should be able to find a link down in the description below. So whilst you're perusing that, notice there is a little like button you could click. There's a subscribe button too. I guess it's a bit too early. I've been droning on for a few minutes now, and yeah, if this is your thing, if you're into Traveller, if you're into 3D printable starships at all, and happen to be seeing this for the first time, or you're just curious about how we model in Maya, because that's what this is mostly about, for 3D printing, give us a follow, and yeah, that's it. I'm not going to sell myself anymore, but I will sell this campaign, because my life depends on it. Alright, so if you haven't, follow the link and get notified on launch. There's also a link there to sign up for our newsletter, and if you do, we will send you a free STL file. And if you happen to back in the campaign too, John doesn't like this, but you'll get that miniature physically. So, that is if you back a physical pledge. Anyway, I'm a man of my word. Right. He's whispering yes. We also have a new development, and yes, you should be worried. I'm not quite sure what it is. Oh no. Yeah. So John decided to make a Benjamin and Dice Tower, and we were playing Starfinder last night, and I can tell you I was promised if I appeased it that things would go my way, and they didn't, and I pretty much know why. It's because this is the finished one, and there's another 2 prototypes on John's shelf, and I think they're all competing for my luck, which means I barely was able to roll above an 8. Not entirely true, but I mean, it's not far from the truth. It was a pretty bad luck evening, and I think the other Benjamin got jealous. So, if you don't know what we're talking about, I apologize profusely. Let's get into some show and tell before we get started.
Actually, before we go to that,
Yes, John?
maybe you should tell them at least that they can get all this stuff by joining the tribe.
Yes, you can get all this wonderful stuff by joining the tribe. I'm sure they really want to get Benjamin in. We do make cool vehicles and spaceships and things as well, but yeah, anyway. Alright, let's start with the big one, I think. And John, just before we went live, decided to tell me he broke another landing gear, which is not the best, but we have... He was lying. We have Typhon here. Oh, you did put the screens in. Lovely. I don't want to angle this too much because it'll start sliding, but you can see there's a lot more interior now. It did start sliding. And you can see the med bay has some stuff in it, which is all fallen apart because of this thing we call gravity. Apparently the ship has not got its artificial gravity on just now. Maybe there'll be a purge in a second. But you can see it's really starting to take shape. One of the antenna on the front knocked off, but we do
I
have...
broke it.
Yes, anything that's broken on this, it was John. The landing gear we have done a second pass on, and so far it's all holding together. John's jokes aside, and you get an impression of the size and scale now, right? So, pretty big. And basically double the length of an Erebus. And yeah, I'm looking forward to showing the rest of this off. I will show it in 3D in a sec too. Thank you, John. So basically, this is what we were looking at. Let me switch my camera back. So we have all of this crawl space in. It was kind of hidden. We haven't done this room yet, and most of the port side crawl space is not done. We've done up to there. The ladder wells are in. They came out well. You didn't.
I almost broke another antenna.
Okay.
Almost.
Well, I mean, that needs reprinting anyway, so that's okay. The ladder wells came out really well, I think. And we have the level above too. So this is all printable now to this point, basically. This whole corridor and section. As well as the hull, obviously you saw. I am reprinting a few parts because I didn't use the correct infill. I still didn't use the correct infill, but I used better incorrect infill than I did the first time. So and also there was a defect between these two parts. There was a gap right there that I needed to reprint. You can kind of see here this has a corner built in, and I had mirrored that part without thinking about the fact that there's no gap on the opposite side. So a little bit of asymmetry there. So this is the large ship that I've been working on for a while now. That was in our last campaign. So let's move on to some more show and tell. We're going to get into this in just a little bit, and you'll get to live the nightmare with me. But for now, let's switch back to the close-up camera and look at some of the stuff from the upcoming 5th Frontier War campaign. So, a little bit of news. We have settled on prices for the physical stuff, and also a final number, because when we're producing physical and you have no idea how many stretch goals could be unlocked, we decided we're not going to go that way anymore. There will be stretch goals, but it'll be either STL vehicles that, if you're all in for the STL version of things, you will get added, or it'll open it up to order and purchase physical versions as well if you prefer to do that. However, so we have 80 miniatures is what we're shooting for. So the full physical version, a faction's going to be €50 for 20 miniatures. That gets down the miniature price to about $250. And the factions will be the Imperial Marines, the Zhodani infantry, and the Flashpoint Travellers. So based on the Travellers that appeared in that module in particular. So we have 4 characters. I'll be showing it off shortly. You can get all 3 of those for $140, so $10 discount. Or you can bump that up to a 5th Frontier War, which will include another 20 unlocks for either 155 early bird prices on the day 1 or 165 otherwise. So, which gets the miniatures down to around $2.30 and then $1.94 if you get in on that. Sorry, $2 if you get in on that. And if you get in on the early bird, it's even cheaper. Good? Yep. The vehicles.
There are some comments about the Typhon, about how it's huge and beautiful, delta size.
Lovely. I'm looking forward to reading the comments. I don't have them up at the moment. I probably should occasionally check in. So, oh wow, yeah, we have an active chat today. That's lovely. So let's see what people are saying so far. So far, the Dice Tower and Gaming Story wasn't show and tell. No, it wasn't. And yes, the thing is huge. It is beautiful. I agree. Did I forget to add toilets and showers to that? No, they do exist on the Typhon. They do. It's just the space truck that I forgot it on. And honestly, you could install one. Who needs an airlock? I mean, think of this. Wouldn't it be beneficial if you had an airlock for a toilet on occasion? Especially once you're finished. Anyway, Tamsin tapped away to check Discord and missed the Typhon show off. Oh, well, I mean, the beautiful thing about a stream is you can go back and forward, and I ramble a lot, so you're really not missing much. Just catch up in 1.5 times speed. Sam says, I love the triangle boat. It looks absolutely amazing. I've decided the salon table will be my storage place. Storage is a bit of an issue. Any word on a Mongoose PDF throw-in? We have discussed it, but I imagine I'll get confirmation maybe on Monday or Tuesday. We did talk about doing something like that, but I'm not entirely sure what we can offer at the moment. So I can say with the physical stuff, our margins are not good, but they're tolerable. And the important thing is that John can get by on it. Well, I mean, it wouldn't be good if like both us and you could get by on. We'll get by on the STL stuff. You're gonna get by on the physicals.
Please no, don't worry too much, because if we get lots and lots of orders, we will go switch to mass manufacturing instead. We're not gonna do everyone through the just one little resin printer, no. But it's gonna be fun, and I'm very excited.
You can kind of see the relation, can't you? With that thing. The smile is it's quite similar. Anyway, you're probably sick of seeing my mug, so let's show off a few things. The big thing is Albin worked very hard. You might even say at a fever pitch on this tank, which is the Varstel M. This is basically the standard Imperial tank before the Trepida comes into production, which is a couple of years into the 5th Frontier War. So you can see we've got the Imperial Sun on it. Technically it's the wrong branch. I think this should be Marines. But what?
Who cares?
We're going off the art that was painted. The white stripe isn't just like some nice livery that we added. It's also so that the decals actually show off as yellow. You can kind of see the layer there of where the decal meets the surface. So
that tank looks fab. Tank looks good.
It looks alright.
No.
Oh, that's what they're saying?
Yes.
Okay, and you can kind of see it created some interesting geometry for the back of it. One of the great things about the Mongoose art is there's less of it than the other Traveller stuff, and it tends to be incongruent with the deck plans if they exist, and with tanks there are no deck plans. So at the moment, also for production reasons, these are just a solid. There's no interior. We haven't decided yet if we're going to add them. I think it will depend on how successful the campaign is, basically.
I like that Imperial tank better than the Zhodani tank.
Well, I wonder why. Aesthetically, it is more my style, and I think when you see it in 3D, it looks a lot better than the 2D version, especially from above. So nice one there. Someone also, I think this was on Facebook, but they were asking, "Oh, I'd love to see the Second Dynasty G carrier alongside this thing for scale." So there is. Let me bring this to the edge so it's fair. John's having a panic attack, which, I mean, I've been doing that all morning, so welcome to the club, mate.
Make it make sense, sir. Make it make sense.
Look, this is a flight. Well, they're both flying. They both can somehow go. This has lots of armor and big gun. This is one of the issues with the Mongoose stuff, actually, that the turrets on the tanks, due to the tonnage, end up being bigger than turrets on ships by a long shot. They're almost as big as a barbette. We also have a very cool painted Imperial Marine. I really should bring my hat so this isn't such an issue anymore. Come on, get the fingernails. There you go. So she's a bit pale, but I mean she works in space. Oh man. Right. It keeps focusing on Benjamin. I'm sorry, guys. Does that work?
Let me help. There you go. There.
No, I can't do it. You hold it now.
Okay, fine.
Wait, that shirt's gonna trigger it for sure.
There you go.
Oh yeah, someone said to do that. Why didn't I listen? Yeah, it's still tiny. Yeah. So that is our female Marine, now painted. We probably have a few more, but I'm not going to torture you with that. I think we'll look at some renders instead. So speaking of which, let's switch to the scene, which also, my desktop, I guess, which means I can also switch to the chat. So if you have any questions about those base things or what we're offering in the campaign, pricing as well is pretty set at this point in time. The STL pricing, early bird will be €90. After that, it will be 95, and that will the Fifth Frontier War physical is just the miniatures, because the vehicles have a significant cost attached to them. The Veshergis Gravitic Combat Platform, I think you guys might have seen it before, the Zhodani equivalent of a heavy grav tank. It's 37.5 tons, so it actually comes in physically a lot larger even than the small craft. So for example, John was selling the launch for €64, I think, in the last campaign. This thing we're trying to, I'm taking a bit less of a cut so it doesn't get too insane, but it does end up being about 60. So, and then it goes down from there. Like that Imperial tank, I think we're going to hit about 35 for that one if you want it finished and printed. And we might have options for inserts if you want to do interiors on the APC style ships and that sort of thing. But we'll see how things go. I have a feeling that the tonnages are somehow wrong or misconverted from earlier versions, but this is what we're working with. This is what we're going to do. And the beautiful thing about Traveller is there's always going to be a fan that likes a different version and wants to have a, has strong opinions about which direction things should go. John says, love the praise on the tank. Yes, I am enjoying that too. So really nice to see some good interest. We do have a good following so far of about 640 people on the campaign page. Technically, we'd like to see a lot more than that though. So we'll see what happens. Thank you, John, for sharing the link. And
sign up or else.
Don't force them. Let's see. So that's the show and tell part of that. No, we need to look at the. Let me get up a new browser, and we'll get into what is it? Production Traveller 5, right? And then did you move them to images?
Yes.
So images and then miniature renders, and then I think we'll just open one of these up and we should be able to just go through them. So what we're looking at here, this is one of our 4 heroic miniatures. So when I said there's 3 factions, we polled the community a lot earlier, and it was quite obvious from the results of that poll that we wanted, that a lot of people, sure, they were interested in the military forces in the 5th Frontier War campaign, but they said it just wasn't enough by itself to actually be appealing enough. So we wanted to add a 3rd faction, and really this faction, we're calling it like the Flashpoint Travelers because it's based on the 4 characters that pop up in that adventure. However, they didn't have names, so we've named them, and we did check with Mongoose to double check that they didn't have names already. So to start with, those 20 poses will be our traditional 5 poses that we do for heroics. So, for example, this is the action pose for the cyborg, which we're calling Elara. Let's see if this works or not. This is the seated pose. We've got the lying down pose. Beautiful renders by John. We have the idle pose, and we have the 0G pose. And I don't think we're going to show all of those off straight away. Maddie is the first faction. I like that. And then we've got Korik, who is a more Asian-looking gentleman, now painted in a very fun way by Lisa Lott over there. The moustache got very interesting.
Don't comment on that. No, we don't want to get banned.
I'm not going to say anything more. So that's the action pose. It looks good now, John. Yeah. The seated pose. He's a very serious man, apparently. We've got the lying down pose. Are the eyes actually closed? Yes, I think so. We have the idle pose, although it kind of looks like he should have a holster on a hip with that pose. And we have the 0G version. He's, like I said, very serious man. Then we have Maris, who is probably my favorite. She's very dynamic. We've got the seated pose. We have the lying down pose, the idle pose, and the 0G pose. I really love those ones the best, I think. And note John even puts into the renders like this artificial, like he actually makes the meshes a little worse than they are in real life to sort of make it look in the renders like they're actually 3D printed with an SLA printer. Wait, have these not been at full scale? They haven't. Sorry, guys. Right, now we have our Zhodani. I'm going to guess that's an officer by the look of its stomach. So
It's grunt.
that is a grunt. Okay, sorry. We've got the kneeling. These are the Zhodani style laser rifles. Running. We have seated. I wonder what that could be for. Obviously, these fit in all our standard chairs, and if you wanted to put, for example, this miniature in that APC I was just showing off, that could be possible. We have a more idle pose. This is the Zhodani officer now, directing his troops into battle. This is with the helmet off. You can see we have the traditional turban in place. This, I think we're back to some grunts, if I'm not mistaken. Or is this the officer as well?
That's also the officer.
Okay.
They're very similar.
Yes, I mean it's a war. We want to provide variations. Actually, the helmets are where the giveaway is, isn't it? Yeah, there it is. They've got the whole more like Zentradi look there, and here it's more a split look. So pistol version, seated version. Obviously, being an officer too, he there is a bit of intersection there, but trust me, when it comes to actual miniature painting, this is not the worst thing. But of course, he's doing the man spread, being the officer. And yes, with the pistol there, and that's what we have, right? So far.
We have more in that folder.
Do we?
Oh no, we don't.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's not going further.
My bad.
We haven't got to the Imperials yet.
I have to. I'm gonna finish that today. I'm
Cool.
so sorry, sir.
What? Don't panic. But if there are some done before the end of the stream, just let me know.
Oh, I'll start the render now.
You don't have to. But yeah, what do you guys think of the miniatures so far? I think they've come out really nice. Being an officer, he sits down a lot. Yeah. Hey, Joseph, welcome. Glad to catch up in the live chat. Nice, welcome. Yeah, Shergol, I just love that. Maddie is the first faction. It's brilliant. I imagine the crotch piece of the armor would prevent anything other than man spreading when seated. Basically, yeah. So it probably is just some kind of move. Technically, it's kind of hard to see, but the pants as well and the arms are actually a teleportation suit. As, you know, most Zhodani officers are at least a little side-trained. So let's minimize this because we're starting to get down to the halfway point. Now, what I'm going to work on today is this. And this is actually a preview of what you can expect to see in the Kickstarter campaign. So this would be the graphic for an add-on. I thought I was getting a bit too close to Mongoose's style. I sent it to Matthew to say, hey, I really don't want to tread on any toes. I based this off the 5th Frontier War campaign look. You know, are we getting a bit too close to Mongoose here? And he's like, no, go for it. So, yeah, very generous. It appears they've extended not just their art for our use, but even some of their layout to some degree. So yeah, I'm very excited to see what the end results will be, and I think it'll be a nice, clean campaign. And I have to say thank you to Mongoose Publishing, because in the last week in particular, Cassie and Kane and Matthew have really stepped up. They sent us some physical books we can have in our presentations, and yeah, I'm just looking forward to getting this out into the world. Not at all because I want to get the Typhon finished and this has to happen first, but yeah, no, it's fun. But what we have here is the Talatl Light Fighter. I'm not sure on the pronunciation, I'm quite sure it's wrong. But this, if I understand the history correct, used to be the Zhodani fighter. It's an 8-tonner, so it's quite small. It's actually meant to be 2 tons less than the Rampart. It's quite small. And originally it looked like a MiG. So it was a bit of a weird shape. You're going to see it in the Miocene because I imported it. But this is one of the cases where I'm not always, like Mongoose style, not always my favorite with ships in particular. I really love the Mega Traveller black and white art done by the likes of like Rob Caswell, for example. But this fighter was lacking in earlier materials, and they actually did redo it in such a way that I would say it was interesting. And in fact, of the art that I saw, it's like, oh, this one looks cool. So I had the idea that if we're going to have several different tanks and whatnot, we would want some air support to go along with that. And of course, I pitched to Mongoose the Rampart 3, the classic version of the Rampart being described as the Rampart 4 and 5. So this is the precursor, and this thing will be the Talatl Light Fighter, and this is the art we have for it. It comes from, like, I think the first or second page of the 5th Frontier War, fighting some standard kind of fighter, I guess, in the initial invasion. So let's have a look at our Miocene here. So we have my Rampart 3 completely finished and printable. You can see the room for missile racks on the bottom, and for having the support arm that we've done for posing. And you can see already I'm running into a few issues. And this is the old silhouette and you know, scale of this thing. And yeah, there is some incongruences here. So I mean, each of these squares is meant to be, like, 2 of them is 1 D-ton. Obviously, this is all wings, and I don't know that this ship in particular was listed as 8 D-tons, although it does say that on the wiki. So, the Mongoose version, once again, let me just get this up, is quite different. And I think the reason why is, let me just make this a bit smaller for now. They really just wanted to get away, from this really modern looking fighter. So we can see from the jet wash, we have twin engines now. Tail fins we never saw in this version whatsoever. Maybe there was other art, I'm not sure. And they've done a lot here at the front to just make it a little bit more sci-fi. And so far it is a little bit of a nightmare to model, if I'm being honest. The wings are an odd shape, but they do seem to, like, let me point this out real quick. So let me just, if I double click this, it goes to full, sorry, that's upscaled. So it's not going to look great anyway. You can kind of see there's incongruencies even in this art between the wings. So it could just be like there's different surfaces that are moving, but this area over here does not match to this version over here. Mm-hmm. There is some deliberate, what should we call it? Deliberate sort of motion blur effect in place here because it looks like the ship's trying to bank. But we can kind of see from how the light and shadow falls that there are some issues. Like here, you can see this looks like it's a curved surface. Over here, it looks like it's very much a sharp edge. Now, this might be some deliberate asymmetry, but I'm not going to go for asymmetry. You can see that there's a couple of like intake-like things here. There's this sort of raised area, which I'm going to assume is actually like more a flat plate. That's the way I envisage it. So if this is a really light fighter, like this is maybe some kind of radiator type layout. There'll be two jet engines at the back, or sorry, maneuver drives, and this huge big laser at the front. I don't actually have a laser on the Rampart at the moment. And when I looked at the stats for this thing, it actually was a missile carrier. So I'm thinking we just put some hard points under the wings. I know technically it's meant to be a launcher that's fixed, but I mean, that's more or less the same thing. So basically I'm in the blockout phase. So it's kind of the boring phase of designing a fighter. We're trying to find the right balance. And I'm going to have to move this over to my other screen. I'll block myself on the stream a little bit so I can still see the chat. But I need it as a reference to look back and forth between. And we're not really at the phase where we're going to worry about the details that will, we're not at this phase where we're doing all the panel lining and adding some greebles here and there and little indentations and that sort of thing that are going to be fun to paint. We're just at the blockout phase. And I really only imported this in to try and get an idea about how big it was. So this definitely, the Rampart was made smaller because like it just didn't make sense before. This is actually the same size of our existing Rampart, I believe. Alban went downstairs, didn't he?
He did.
So, I mean, I've got this here. And you can kind of see it's quite large as it is. And it feels like a healthy size for a fighter. Obviously, the later Ramparts, well, maybe not obviously, but according to the lore, they were built to sort of like fire out Battlestar Galactica style, like a Viper, right? And the wings, the whole thing was only meant to be 3 meters in diameter. Now, obviously, this thing is a lot larger than that. It has the wings, and the reference image we have, it kind of looks a little chunkier, but I'm feeling like we can give it back a little bit of a svelte waist by lowering the wings a little bit and having this area sort of move inwards. These boxes here are for the purpose of figuring out how many tons it is. So two of these boxes is 1 ton. And if you imagine by the end of things, we're going to have basically a double high. So each one of these is also 1 inch by 2 inches by 1 inch. So let's see. Mon Capitan says, with a 3 meter wingspan, the cockpit would be like a coffin. Yes, it would. I don't know if they were meant to fold out or something, maybe. Brian agrees that Mega Traveller art is some of the favourite Traveller art. Dalton says it's funny how the aesthetic of the Imperials versus those have changed over time. Yes, it is. I would change all of them if I could. But this, I think, is one of the examples of where I think they actually went in a more interesting direction. It's still a bit of a mess. It still suffers from some of the mongoose issues of there being, perspective issues. Let me just briefly bring this up. And it's not a criticism against the art style or anything, because it really suits this particular art style. It's more about shadow and color. But why it becomes a nightmare for converting to 3D is the fact that, there's, incongruencies in the shape of it. It's not symmetrical. It's clearly meant to be. It's just a case of, the perspective doesn't quite work out. Like with the shadow here, look how much wider this side is with those highlights to this side. It can be difficult to tell exactly what we're looking at here. So, I have to do an interpretation. And I think this one feels a little bit more almost Star Citizen-y in its design. And I think that's kind of a cool thing. So there's I'm probably going to introduce a bit more symmetry than what we're seeing here. Asymmetry I would normally reserve for like sensor rods or, something where there's a logical reason why you wouldn't want it to be symmetrical. Because when it's an aerodynamic fighter, I'm not saying this is super aerodynamic, but according to the rules it's streamlined, right? You still want it to be very symmetrical as to not affect the flight characteristics as much. So I might be overthinking it. I overthink most things, but I kind of feel like you end up giving a better result if you put a little bit of thought into it. So even if for me it's like, okay, well, these are maybe radiators, for example. It's got souped up fast engines, for example. So you probably got, this is maneuver 6, maybe it's got 2 maneuver 3 drives next to each other or something like that combine to put that output. The cockpit is going to be kind of cramped. It's probably slightly longer than in this perspective because it is dynamic, but we can't make it too much longer because then you're going to end up with an 8-ton fighter looking significantly larger than a 10-ton fighter. But it also comes down to like D-tons is about volume. So technically with all this wing space, that's not taking up tons and tons of volume. It's still like, how are you going to pack that in your cargo? Because a wing won't support 10 tons of cargo on top of it, obviously, unless they have some real super materials in the far future. But yeah, so there's some challenges. So it looks like they got some different wing surface areas. We might simplify this a little bit. Not sure yet if I want the canards to actually move. They look more aesthetic at this point. But yeah, we're just generally going to go with the shape. I kind of feel like the front here, this reminded me of some old Lego parts. And it almost looks like if you could, I was about to like put my hand up on the screen, but if you can imagine this cockpit section wasn't there, it almost looks like a different style of cockpit. I don't know what the purpose of these side ports are, but it's kind of like flatter, I guess. So it's going to be quite interesting to build all of this in and see what we can do for the shape without it taking days and days and days and days. Now, this doesn't have to be finished now. That's one of the beautiful things of this kind of graphic. Thanks to Mongoose's art, we can now say, hey, look at our past reputation for building things. Trust us, we're going to get this done and you're going to be happy with the results. Here is a concept, and instead of us having to work in 3D to build that concept like you're seeing me do now, which is an enormous amount of work in itself, we can show the Mongoose art and say, this represents what we're making, so you know if you're interested or not. Alright, let's look at the chat and then we can actually get to 20 minutes of sculpting and modeling. Let's see. So, Dalton says the original Imperials were hard lines, boxy whites, boxy, while Zos were rounded, sleek, etc. I mean, yeah, I agree. And this is kind of like the opposite, isn't it? I guess that's the point you're trying to bring up. John is rendering the Imperial Grunt female. So there is it ready?
There's only one, it's the XR.
Okay. So we're going to wait until it's converted. So he'll do a little bit of a show at the end. It does take a while to render pictures, believe it or not.
I'm on a little laptop.
It's a powerful little laptop. So Shurgle says asymmetry that works goes back to the Typhon's bridge, for example. Thank you. Yes, that is a good example, and I like that kind of thing. Shadow Liger says you could check out the fuel boom on the Harrier for an example of good asymmetry. Yes, I agree on that one. I don't need to check it out in the memory there. Does anyone have access to the wind tunnel so we can test the aerodynamics of printed models? And Shadow Liger said, actually, if anyone had access to that, it might be Shadow Liger, but those side parts could be steps for the pilot. Okay. And Modhail. Hey, Modhail. Folding wings like a Grumman Wildcat or Sea Vixen. Yeah, we're not going to put in any new features. How the Zos store this is not our problem. Did you have something to contribute, John, or you're just there? Thank you.
Don't watch the stream later.
What? I don't know that they could see it unless you put him...
I made sure.
Oh. So the thing is, like, I almost get, like, an ache in my back. He's staring at me again now. So the last thing I was actually working on before you guys... before I started streaming, was this little shape here in the middle. It looks like there's an indentation. We can see from the highlight on this side, like you can see here, this pops up. So this side pops up too. So there's like a little notch cut out of the back. That seems about parallel with where this part ends. So I may lengthen the final results, but right now I'm just going to move this image over onto the other side. I can move this there so I can still see that there are 28 wonderful people in the chat at the moment, so make yourselves known if you care to. So yeah, let's build this shape. So since it comes back in again, what we want to do is just take these and drop it down just a tad, just something like that, and it's not much more than that. Let's make sure that's on the grid, and I'll probably play with this just a little bit more. It does look like it has a slightly uneven, and I'm going to look at my other screen basically because the picture's there. I can't have it on this one just because I can't keep an image on top, and it would interfere with my use of my... And you can really see from this block out, it's extremely simple at this phase. We're just looking to capture the shape of the ship. And if I now hide these objects, I can start showing you what I'm thinking for the overall shape. And one of the things I'm going to do is actually drop down the wings a little bit lower. And you just imagine that this was up a bit higher than what the Rampart is. So that we kind of like have the lower wings there. And one of the ways I can tell the wings are fairly low, let's look at this again, is the shadow here. There's quite a significant amount of shadow there showing the shape. You can see there's no gap, so it's physical. But exactly how this shape is underneath these, what I call radiators, we can't tell. So I'm going to add some geometry to make the fighter look visually interesting. Not that it doesn't already, but I just kind of want to figure out the shape for myself. I've kind of like these fins too at the back of the ship. Let me look at that again real quick. See how they kind of pop out from underneath? It almost looks like an AI artifact. I know this isn't AI, but like it's an odd shape. So I'm going to play with that when we have the final results. So I figured this continues on down a little bit, and then basically where we'll have the center line of these two, we'll have the engines basically there and there. Maybe they're a little wider, so like if we just, and right now I've got this geometry mirroring, but I'm just going to create an extrusion here, and I'm just going to make it follow this 45-degree angle down, just to see where we're at, and then to sort of figure out where I want these engines. So I'm going to extrude this and flatten it, and then if I'm looking at the image, and you'll have to trust me, it looks like we have right in the middle of this edge is basically where the engines would be. So if I bring this down to there, we would basically have the engines here. So that's squarish, that's where we want them. We'll probably make them a bit larger than that. But part of the reason why I wanted this geometry is so that we've got something to work with underneath here. So what I'm kind of thinking, actually it'd be probably better if I stick to one viewport window, is I kind of want this overhang like area so that we almost have like, I don't know, like what to call it, like maybe like an F-16 style, like narrowing, and then we could just kill the backs of these things a little bit, and maybe we want to get to a point where this can sort of meet up with this in an interesting way. So sometimes I like to just move my pivot points, and in this case you can see the pivot point, which in case you're not aware, is basically if you've got a face or your selection, the point in which if you wanted to rotate or move the things, this is the focus point. So like when you're moving the mouse pointer, this is the part that actually moves, and you can change the location of it based on what you want to do when you're moving the selection. So I could move this where it is right now, but you can see this is affecting where the way my polygon is deforming. If I want this to remain the same shape, to keep a little bit of that sharp angled look, what I'm doing now is just moving it to, whoops, I need to also have my my vertex snapping on. So I moved it to the halfway point of this edge, and if I move it there, what I know is now that is a flat surface. So basically I was just trying to create something so that when we do extrude this again, we could do something like this. Not saying this is the final result or anything like that, but creating a sort of overhanging area that can also explain why this ship might have less of a, I guess, tonnage. So you'll have your engines there. Why don't we just extrude that just a tiny little bit so that we get an understanding that that's where they are. Something like that. And then we'll just, I think, continue to hook up our wings here. So I might just do a little extrusion and link it up. Obviously that doesn't make perfect sense, but you're just getting a little bit more of an interesting shape. And actually, let's see, I don't want to bring it back to what this is. You can obviously see this had a much thinner cockpit, despite the fact that this is sort of to scale. You can see what will fit in there. The shape is kind of hard to tell, maybe. Let's see what people are saying. All right. Doug says if they have enough velocity, they will surely cause damage. Right. And Modhay, I'll see you next time. Thanks for joining us. So, my problem here is the overall shape. Now, I can tell from the art that the wings are supposed to be wide, and actually, if we look at the profile, it does kind of look like a triangle, just with some cutouts. What are you guys thinking so far? That'd be interesting to find out, actually. So I'm going to grab these edges, and just let me know what you're thinking of the direction I'm taking it. And from what I understand, like this is it. Like I've got some pretty big liberties here that I can take. So I'm just going down a little bit more, and we'll probably figure out a way that we can sort of even that off. The Rampart's starting to get a bit annoying in the way of the camera, so let's see if we can. That's the old one without the engine, but you can kind of see where this is coming from, right? So let's just add. Oops. It's not even grouped. All right. Let's just add this all together into its own layer for now. Call it Rampart. It doesn't need to be in the scene, but it's good for reference. We want to make something that's quite similar. So now we can hide it, and we can also add this to our sort of reference. So it's gone for now. So we can get a decent look at what we're working with for the time being. It's nice and cool and flat, but you can kind of see what I'm trying to do here. Let's see what people are saying. The wing is starting to look good. Thank you, Joseph. Eric says it has an elite, dangerous vulture vibe. Okay, yeah, okay, that doesn't sound too bad. The design follows my earlier suggestion without you having noticed it. Okay, great. That's wonderful. So yeah, sorry guys. I mean, I chat and talk, and I wouldn't get anything done if I only stayed in the chat. But it is indeed often said that great minds think alike, and there is a second part to that phrase, and fools never differ.
That's what I was thinking of.
Yep. How ironic. Oh boy. It's Friday.
Free dog.
Yes. So I'm just gonna play with the shapes a little bit here, so you get the impression of where I'm going with this, I think. It still will need a little bit more work. Like, I don't like the look of this thing. I think we need to maybe just add. And this is what I would call sketching. So I'm not modeling for a final design. I'm just experimenting. I was doing this presentation last week. It was last week, right?
Yeah.
And I was trying to describe this process to some first year 3D students, because they asked, like, what do you do? How do you do a 3D sketch? But really what I just mean is a low polygon mock-up of what it could possibly look like.
Tell them about what the student.
Which, oh, yeah, shout out to the student who had a friend that was a fan, because I got asked for an autograph, which is new. And I apologize to you if you're the friend that got the autograph that said, "Hi, I'm Ben from Second Dynasty" with my signature. I think you got the good one. Your friend, I guess I made a joke at their expense, and they said just write something, and I wrote something basically.
Did you literally write the word something?
No, it wasn't quite that bad. I can't remember how bad it was, but it's like, it's like de yog. So this is me. Just write something to say this is you, and I wrote this is me, and then signed it. I feel bad after
You
the
should
fact.
feel bad. You're a bad person.
I'm not, but sometimes I was overwhelmed. Okay. I was
Yes.
overwhelmed. I've never had someone ask for my autograph before. But yeah. It was kind of cool, in a way, that someone had heard of me. So, let's see. I'm just going to close this. So, it's not a perfect mesh. It's not the final form, but we're getting more of an impression of like where we could possibly take this design. And I think I can just, I can close that off. And because we're working with what we call an instanced mesh, so basically I've taken the pivot point of this, moved it into the center, and then I've duplicated it with what we call an instance. In Maya, you can go edit, duplicate special, and in the settings, you can set it for instance, which basically does a mirror of that, and that's why it's scaled at -1 there. So it makes a complete copy, but what happens is when you select one area, you can see it's selecting the opposite mesh, and it affects both sides at once. So it is a good way to work, especially if you're trying to get some symmetry. So I'll probably try and add back more of an organic shape. But yeah, now this is kind of, I get where the elite vibes are coming from. And obviously under here there's some kind of laser cannon, and yeah, it has a ways yet to go, and this is honestly, I'm probably not going to be fully making it printable for another few months, to be honest. I'm not sure. Our physical models are not going to be, I think we set the delivery date to like June next year. It probably will not take that long, but we're just erring on the side of caution. And the 3D models, I'd say they'd be done by December. But
Can I say something?
yes.
I just want to say Ben really supports the Kickstarter industry. He has backed so many campaigns, and I want to talk about what makes him unique. I've never seen someone so consistently hit the deadlines they state or beforehand for products. It's always that way. I don't think anyone's ever had to be like, how many times have you ordered something Kickstarter and you got it like, I think you did a 2019 Kickstarter where you got the order in last week.
Yep.
I'm not going to name names. No naming names. But
Rampage.
yeah.
It wasn't last week, it was like a year ago, but still, like, it took 5 years to get delivered, so yeah, we're not that kind of person, and you have finished delivering.
Mm-hmm. We already finished delivering from the previous one, and the
except for the Typhon. The Traveller 4.
And we're almost done delivering. We're down to just like 12 ships left for the current one, so it'll be
Yeah,
ready in time.
only 12 left, so if you want to make another Erebus order, now's the time to do it.
It's always the best time to do it before the next campaign comes in and clogs up.
That is true. So yeah, if you want an Erebus, do it now. Oh wait, we got another follower. Okay, we only have 2 minutes left, so why don't I see if I can just tap the next key and see if anything turns up. It doesn't.
I have new images for you to look at.
Yeah, that's what I thought, but
They're in there.
oh yes, they are. Here we go. You
Just
did quite a few.
Just
So-
so you know.
This is the miniature I was holding up to camera before. So this is our female, we're calling it Imperial Grunt, but really it's just infantry. So you can see the nice detail. I believe we have some variants where we've taken away the ammo clips on the thighs. That's not the bullpup, is it? No.
One's a bullpup, one's a...
Is that it though?
I think that might be the bullpup, maybe.
Maybe. So, yeah, that's the Imperial laser rifle. This
That's
is
the
the
bullpup.
bullpup, which is a naval bullpup technically, but I figure they must use the same weapons.
Mm-hmm.
Seated pose for your APCs. Note, we haven't got a default Imperial APC. We've got our old style, so that's probably one of the main stretch goals we'll be thinking about. There is I think it's called I don't want to say the name, but I think it's like, it sounds like Kestrel or Vestral or something like that. And I've got some ideas for how we could sort of do a newer version that's a mating of old and new. This is a better view of the bullpup with this sort of reverse mag look. Not everyone's into the Traveller weapons, but I kind of feel like they're cool and sci-fi. We've got our laser rifle up, and these are the female meshes, right?
Correct. All these are female.
and bullpup again, laser rifle again, and yeah, those are the ones that he did. So hopefully you guys are a little bit excited for these miniatures. We're excited to get yes, the Astron Tamsin. Thank you. I don't know why I was thinking Kestrel or something, but Astron is the one I was thinking of. I like the Mega Traveller version of that. And Mongoose was not. They don't have a problem with us going in a different direction. They just don't want us to go backwards, I guess, is the right way to put it. Need sockets in the wall for the back of the helmet to sit in. Yeah, that is a major issue with the Imperial stuff. So I will stream. I'm streaming from home on Wednesday before we go live. I should be able to do it straight after I take the dog for a walk. The wife will still be a few hours from coming home. So it could be an interesting launch. We're going 8 p.m. Central European time, which means approximately 2 p.m. East Coast US or 11 a.m. West Coast US. So we're trying to aim for the optimal time where everyone's bored at work. And hopefully I'll see you guys there. So if you haven't already, follow the campaign. Get that free miniature by getting into our mailing list. Honestly, we say we only send out once a month, but honestly, it's way less than that at the moment.
I said we intend to eventually move up to.
We do. When we have a campaign on that, we might do more, which is probably about the time we need to actually send out some newsletters. Anyway, guys, thank you for joining me. Thank you for your continued support. And even if you can't contribute in economically this time around, just being here in the chat and getting involved, giving us feedback, it really helps with our morale in the company. It helps us, keep on top of everything, especially during these really stressful processes of getting a campaign live. So we will be back on Wednesday with the launch stream and then on the Friday next week. So I hope to see you guys then. Yeah. Wish us luck. Bye, guys.